If you're a student, there is a very good chance you are currently enduring the January exam revision, or possibly even the exams have started for you yet. So I thought I would recount some of my most memorable exam experiences and see if that, I don't know, relieves the stress a little bit. I've had quite a few exam experiences which were like worst case scenario, and yet they somehow ended up okay in the end. So I thought that might be reassuring to a few people who are a bit nervous about maybe first university exams, or I don't know, just exams. They're stressful, they're awful. I did my master's degree in geographic information and climate change, and I'd just come from a background in physics, which was very useful, but had not prepared me for essay-based exams. These are very different to physics exams, which are usually lots of shorter questions worth a few marks where you have to derive some kind of equation or solve a problem or remember some kind of information. These were a list of sometimes 6, sometimes more essay questions, and you had to pick 2 or 3 of them depending on the exam and write an essay under exam conditions, which is a completely different thing to what I was used to. So my first exams in my master's were very stressful because I hadn't done proper essays like this in a very long time, not since high school. And in my final one of these exams for the first exam period of January, I had my climate change module exam. There were 6 questions, you had to answer 2 of them. I only knew how to answer 1. That's not the moment you want when you open an exam paper, but I tried to do what I had practiced and trained myself to do, of not worry about the second question yet, do the one I knew, get that done, write that essay. So I spent my first hour working on that essay, and then that was done. So then I had to do something for my second question, and I didn't really know how to answer any of the others. I hadn't prepared, I hadn't looked up sources and references to do with these. I knew a vague background for each of them, but not enough to write a proper essay. Thankfully, one of the questions was a fairly generic climate change question about whether humans had had an impact over the Earth's climate in the last 100 years. So I general knowledged it, pretty much. And I managed to pass the second question as well as the first, so it worked out. There was a big disparity in the mark for each question. Like it was just a pass, like scraped by. But yeah, it worked out, so there we go. So the moral of that story is, even if you have absolutely no idea how to answer a question in an exam, do your best. Give it a go. Sometimes it works. My other interesting exam story, probably my favourite. Anyone who knows me personally knows exactly what I'm about to talk about, and that was the cosmology exam in my 3rd year of my physics degree. In the physics department for the university I went to, Swansea University, there was a very strict format for the exams. There were 2 sections, the A questions and the B questions. The A questions, everybody had to answer. That was the compulsory sort of making sure you had an overall knowledge of the subject, and that would be worth 20 marks for all of those questions. Then you had the B questions. There were 3 B questions, each subsection to various bits and pieces. Each B question was also worth 20 marks, but you only had to pick 2 of them, so you had a total of 60 marks on the paper. That was the way they did it, the idea being if there was one item in the subject that you didn't really get but you understood everything else, you could still get a really high mark in the subject. So it was more to test overall how well you did, rather than picking one tiny little thing and then tearing apart your knowledge on that. Slight aside, there was an exam that did this once, where all the B questions were based around the same single page of notes, so like a half a lecture. We all did not do very well in that exam. That was a bad one. So this cosmology exam, I was feeling fairly confident. It was a subject I understood, I'd revised, I was feeling on top of things, I knew how to do the more complicated mathematical deriving various things that was involved in this module. Got the paper, they said time to start, opened the paper, There were the A questions, quickly glanced over them. Okay, I know what this is about. This is going to be okay. Flipped over. The next question listed was B2. And there was no B3. I put my hand up because there's a problem here. And I looked around. Every other person who was sitting my exam had their hand up as well. The exam invigilators, this look of panic rising on their faces. What is wrong? What has happened? I was one of the first to raise my hand. One came to me directly and asked me what it was. I explained half the paper is missing. I'm guessing there was someone who was like the head invigilator or like the most senior, I don't know. And they had a little discussion and then they told us all, right, part of your paper is missing, but just start working on it. We'll try and get hold of the staff member who wrote the paper, try and get more paper sorted out, and hopefully this won't interrupt anything. So just start, it'll be fine. About 20 minutes later, having done a load of work, they then asked us to stop writing and we were going to start the whole thing again. They collected in all the papers, all of our answers, everything, and we had to wait because we couldn't leave and talk to each other because we'd seen the paper. So we had to sit in silence and wait for our lecturer to arrive with the fixed papers. I honestly don't remember how long this took, but I remember it feeling like forever because you can't draw anything to doodle to kill time. You've got no paper. You can't talk to anyone because you might be talking about the exam. So finally, our lecturer showed up looking a bit sheepish and all the papers got handed out with all the questions in. By this point, I'd been thrown off, I think is the best way to put it. It's a sort of a routine you get into for exams, a way that you think at the start and how you prepare yourself. And I don't know, I kind of lost that zen mode I go into in an exam, and it took a while to get back into the flow of it. And I was so frustrated because before they took my paper, I'd done a full like page-and-a-half derivation of an equation, you know, which I'd practiced and learned and made sure I understood the steps so that I could do it in the exam. And then I was like, right, okay, this question's in it. I'm going to do that now while that's still in my head and not have to worry about it. And then I had to do it again, and it was so annoying. I believe I did fine in that exam in the end. Can't remember my exact grade, but I did all right. But you kind of wonder, would I have done better if I hadn't got so stressed out and flustered by that whole situation? But I think the best part of that story is that the next year, some of my friends who took a different module of his, the same lecturer, it happened again. The same problem. A questions and B2. I don't think he knows how to photocopy double-sided. If you're doing exams right now, best of luck. Make sure you look after yourselves, sleep, eat properly, all of that. I haven't done an exam in quite a few years at this point though, so I'm probably not the best person for exam tips. The one advantage of PhDs, don't have to do exams. A lot of other stuff to do there.